Did you know that there are only 12 different special bending powers that only a select few among the entire world of Avatar can use? Well, today, we'll explain each of these unique bending abilities as we rank its most powerful users. There are 3 unique bending abilities for water, 3 for fire, 3 for earth, 2 for air, and another special one we'll cover in the very end. Just a small heads up, the ranking of benders will be based on how proficient they are at this specific bending form, and not on overall strength. Let's start from water, and probably the most fearsome and at the same time powerful bending ability, Bloodbending. Bloodbending is a specialized subskill and a very rare variant of waterbending that allows an extremely advanced waterbender to take hold of and manipulate the blood within an organism's body, allowing the bender to move the person's muscles. This technique is referred to as the highest level of waterbending, as well as the darkest, most powerful, and most feared of all bending techniques. The technique was discovered by a waterbender named Hama while she was detained in a prison designed by the Fire Nation specifically to hold waterbenders. During her detainment, she realized that all life contains water and proceeded to develop the knowledge and skills of the art by practicing on elephant rats, later employing the technique on her guards to escape. The forms and styles used by bloodbenders resemble how a puppeteer controls a marionette. The complexity and sophistication required to perform the art usually only allows for its use during a full moon, when a waterbender's power is at its absolute peak. Only Yakan, Tarlok, and Aman have shown the ability of performing the art without the aid of the full moon. Being naturally talented and having trained vigorously, Yakan and Aman were capable of bloodbending without using their arms, also known as psychic bloodbending. When it comes to its known users, there are 5. The weakest of them is actually the creator of this technique, Hama. At number 4, it's Katara, that showed incredible feats over this ability, even defeating Hama in a 1v1 bloodbending on her first ever try. As time passed, Katara became incredibly stronger and more efficient in the skill. However, the main difference between her and the rest of the 3 bloodbenders is that Katara needed the presence of the full moon in order to be able to use this skill. At number 3, we have Tarlok, while at number 2, we have his brother Noatak, also known as Aman. Now, how do we know that Noatak was a better bloodbender than his brother? You see, as a matter of fact, Aman was simply superior to his brother in every way, including the usage of his psychic bloodbending that required no gestures or movements, while Tarlok's did. Aman also displayed an ability unique to just him. By bloodbending, he can make the people watching this video click the subscribe button. Unlike the rest of his actions, this would actually be good for you, as with that, you will receive the best anime and Avatar content there is on YouTube. But seriously, Aman did display a unique ability through bloodbending. By touching the targets on the forehead and performing his bloodbending technique, he could permanently take people's bending away. As we saw, this was later negated by the Avatar's powers, but still, under normal circumstances, this action is permanent. And finally, the strongest bloodbender in history, Yakan, the father of Tarlok and Noatak. You see, Yakan was the first ever character to achieve bloodbending without the presence of the full moon. Yakan was so strong that he managed to put to sleep an entire courtroom full of powerful benders like Toph and Aang, both of which were in their prime age. Yeah, Aang later put Yakan in his place, but still, even prime Aang was almost done for. Next, we have the second special bending ability of water, healing. You see, healing is a unique ability possessed by some waterbenders that enables them to heal those who have been wounded, including themselves. Healing can also alleviate certain types of stress caused by mental strain. Though the technique is effective in many contexts, it is actually limited. For example, healing is ineffective in treating birth defects, such as Toph Beifong's blindness, or the complications associated with Princess Yue's birth. In most instances, healing is also ineffective when treating scars or fatal injuries. Katara, for example, was unable to heal the internal injuries sustained by Jet in his duel with Long Feng. Healing can also be used to detect areas in the body where chi flow is blocked, as displayed by Katara when she sensed the energy locked within Aang's chakra during a healing session. That being said, healing cannot undo a blockage to a bender's chi. Moreover, it cannot restore bending after it has been severed through bloodbending, even if the healer is proficient in the technique's practice. The healing abilities of a waterbender can also be affected by the water they use. For instance, water from the Spirit Oasis has special properties that can heal wounds otherwise unaffected by regular water, such as the fatal wounds Aang sustained at the hands of Azula during their battle. The healers worth mentioning here are 2, Katara and her daughter Kaya. There are obviously more healers in Avatar, but they were not really given much attention. Between Katara and Kaya, it's obvious that Katara is a much better healer than her daughter, and did not show to be anything that special in this area. Even though, as we previously stated, bloodbending is probably the most fearsome ability in Avatar, let me tell you, spirit bending is just as destructive in certain occasions. How? Well, it is as destructive as bloodbending, and this time it affects both normal people and spirits. Okay, hear me out. Spirit bending is a variation of the healing technique, which allows the user to affect a balance or imbalance within spirits. To perform the technique, a waterbender encircles the spirit with a thin stream of water, which begins to glow when the technique is taking effect. When used to change a spirit's negative energy into positive energy, the water, followed by the spirit, will begin to glow a golden light, at which point the spirit dissipates or assumes a pacified form. When the technique is used to change positive energy into negative energy, the water and spirit emanate a purple light. When used against humans, the variation has the potential to destroy their souls. The only known users who manage this special bending ability are Unalaq and Korra. Unalaq was actually the one who invented this technique, and was by far the most proficient in it. Unalaq later taught this bending ability to Avatar Korra as well, which, yeah, this proved to be a fatal mistake for Unalaq, as this exact ability was later used against him. Having covered water, let's analyze its polar opposite, fire. The first special ability is none other than combustion bending. Combustion bending is a form of telekinetic firebending that is capable of unleashing powerful explosions. It consists of the ability to channel chi through the forehead, which is often marked by a third eye tattoo, superheating the surrounding air and producing a beam of explosive energy capable of immense damage, both in short and long range. Unlike conventional firebending, which produces a flame from the body, the technique instead creates a powerful beam that explodes upon contact with a solid surface. Combustion bending can instantaneously evaporate large bodies of water, shatter massive rock formations, and counter fire attacks, as demonstrated by Combustion Man when he stopped Zuko's fire shield during a brief altercation at the Western Air Temple. Lee has also demonstrated that it is possible to curve the beams. Despite its great power, the weaknesses of combustion bending are equally apparent. It requires a clear and uninterrupted chi flow and a properly calibrated focus in order to be effective, as if the chi flow is even slightly disturbed, then the ability will catastrophically malfunction. A glancing blow like from a pebble will cause the charged attack to detonate the air around the user, whilst a heavy hit, such as when Sokka hit Combustion Man's third eye tattoo with his boomerang, will cause a massive point-blank explosion. The third eye tattoo may also be a partial weakness, as those familiar with the technique can identify a combustion bender by the presence and actively target the tattoo as a weak point. The process of combustion bending cannot be cancelled out like a conventional fire attack once charged up, and it also relies on an unobstructed path to destroy its target, detonating early if an unexpected obstacle gets in the way. If this happens, or the user is not able to control their power, then it can be deadly or even fatal to them. This was demonstrated when Plee's combustion beam was contained within a makeshift box made from Suyin Beifong's armor, causing the explosion to occur just centimeters away from her head. Another case was when Combustion Man was unable to control his ability and blew his right arm and leg off. Though individual firebenders are sometimes born with a natural affinity for combustion bending, it is not an inherited skill. Instead, combustion benders are effectively made through special training programs involving, among other things, the extended submersion of the trainees in water. However, this training is brutal, and only few firebenders are able to master the skill. The first project which resulted in the discovery of combustion bending, Unanimity, was only able to produce 3 combustion benders, and one of them suggested that all the other trainees had died. There have been 5 known practitioners of this technique: Combustion Man, Plee, Yingsu, Xiaoyun, and Thappa, with the last 3 being featured in the light novels. Leaving out the 3 characters of the light novels, if we had to rank them, then I believe Combustion Man would take the #1 spot, while Plee would take #2. The reason for that was that Combustion Man literally had the entire Avatar team running for their lives, and could not even get near them. It's not an exaggeration to say that without Sokka's boomerang, Combustion Man could surely take down a few, if not all, of the members of Team Aang. Now, did you think combustion bending was lethal? Well, hear this next one. Lightning generation is probably the deadliest form of firebending. You see, lightning generation allows a firebender to produce and guide a bolt of electricity from their fingertip. Physically, generating lightning involves a circular motion with the arms. Mentally, it involves a complete absence of emotion, as well as peace of mind, thus allowing an individual to separate the energies of yin and yang, also interpreted as positive and negative electrical potential, respectively. When the forces collide, the bender guides rather than controls the lightning's direction. This process is taxing on a bender's chi reserves due to its complexity. The electrical arc produced by this technique can be maintained for several seconds, during which time the lightning can be swept about to produce widespread damage. The charge, and thus the damage of the lightning strike, can be regulated, as seen by when Mako was capable of firing a blast strong enough to incapacitate Amon, but otherwise leave him unharmed. We also saw something like this happening in the comics, where Azula managed to hit Zuko with a lightning attack, which in the end did not even harm Zuko, but rather just threw him back a few meters. Prior to the end of the 100-Year War, few firebenders were known to be capable of generating lightning. For centuries, the skill was so rare that few even knew that it was possible at all. A few decades later, however, during the events of Legend of Korra, we saw that, particularly in Republic City, lightning generation was used to generate power for the industrial sector. Even though it was still not widespread, we saw that way more firebenders were capable of this, what used to be an incredibly rare skill. Now, how would we rank the the strongest lightning users. At number 5, we would put Azula. That, yes, her lightning attacks were incredibly lethal on one hand, but as we saw, they required a significant time to charge. The same thing occurs with the character we have at number 4, Iroh. Generally, lightning attacks take much longer time to initiate than standard fire attacks. That being said, certain firebenders like Ozai and Mako are able to generate lightning at extremely high speeds. As we saw with Ozai, the very split second the solar eclipse was over and he had regained his firebending, he instantly fired an attack on Zuko, something that neither Azula nor Iroh were capable of doing. Something similar applies to Mako, that was able to attack almost instantly using lightning. A character that could almost instantly fire lightning as well was Iroh, Zuko's grandson. Yeah, this character is as underrated as it gets. He literally stopped an entire aircraft fleet on his own, and lightning attacks was just one of his ways to do that. Given, however, that Ozai was a bit faster than both Mako and Iroh when it comes to generating lightning, we'll be placing Mako at number 3, Iroh at number 2, and Ozai at number 1. As we explained, lightning generation stopped being such a rare ability in Legend of Korra. However, its counter, not so much. You see, lightning redirection remained an incredibly rare skill even decades after it was first developed by Iroh. Lightning redirection allows a firebender to absorb lightning into the body as energy and release it in a more desirable direction. The technique was developed by Iroh after he studied master waterbenders redirecting force rather than opposing it head-on. The person redirecting it must create a pathway from their fingertips, up the arm to the stomach, and up and out of the other arm. It is essential that the lightning passes through the stomach, because if the lightning passes through the heart, the effects could be fatal. Lightning can be successfully redirected regardless of whether the source is natural or generated. Prior to the end of the 100-Year War, only 3 individuals were known to be capable of redirecting lightning: Iroh, Zuko, and Aang in Legend of Korra. We also saw Mako using lightning redirection while battling a mecha tank during the battle for Republic City, using the technique to redirect an electric charge released by an electric grapple the tank had fired. In the comics, we saw Azula redirecting lightning as well. You see, Azula used a lightning attack on Zuko. Zuko redirected it back at her, but to everyone's surprise, Azula sent the same lightning back again at Zuko, which is what caught Zuko off guard, and thus the lightning hit him. Thankfully, this lightning seemed to be either extremely weak, either from the start or due to its repeated redirections, and thus Zuko was not harmed. If we had to rank these 5 characters capable of lightning redirection, we would do as following. Number 5, Azula, that we only saw her using this skill once. Number 4, Aang, that after redirecting lightning, we saw him being weak, as if he did not properly or fully redirect it, but rather let some of it be absorbed by his body. Number 3 would be Zuko, and the reason for that is not because Zuko had any weakness in that skill, but rather simply because the next 2 characters are honestly just better at this skill. Number 2 would be Mako, since we saw him redirecting lightning for an extended amount of time non-stop. And at number 1, we have Iroh, the one who created this technique to begin with. Both of the elements we just analyzed seem to have incredibly strong special abilities, right? Well, let's see what abilities the element of air has. The first of the 2 is flight. Flight, also called weightlessness, is a complex and extremely rare skill that has only ever been demonstrated by 2 known benders, Guru Lagima and Zahir. It is referred to as the highest level of airbending, and was such a unique ability that it was believed to only exist in legends. It is achievable through a complete denouncement of all earthly desires, which results in true freedom. Zahir was only able to fly after witnessing his girlfriend Pli die. The principle behind flight is to become one with the wind, mimicking its freedom from limitations and inhibitions in both a physical and mental sense. Once an airbender has embraced these principles, they can fly and hover. However, the bender is still at the mercy of the surrounding environment, as observed by Zahir being affected by a tornado created by Jinora and other airbenders while he tried to escape with Korra. Since we don't really know much about Guru Lagima, we will just place him in number 2 and place Zahir in number 1. Now, the second special ability of airbenders is something most of the people never knew is actually specific to airbenders: spiritual projection. Spiritual projection is a complex technique that requires a heightened sense of spirituality, allowing one's spirit to move through the physical realm in an intangible form, unbound by a corporeal body. In order to create a projection successfully, a user must be in a silent environment free from distractions, as the use of the technique requires immense focus. Spiritual projections allow users to explore their immediate surroundings, bypassing physical barriers and different mediums to search through walls as well as underwater. In addition, the technique can also be used to locate specific individuals with whom the user has a strong connection by focusing on the bond between them. Jinora and Mongol showed proficiency in this technique. Now, if you didn't already know, Mongol was a young air nomad who grew up at the Northern Air Temple during the lifetime of Avatar Kyoshi. Spiritual projections are most powerful during times of increased spiritual energy in the atmosphere, such as during harmonic convergence. When used during these occasions, spiritual projections can be maintained for longer periods of time and manifest more clearly, resulting in more distinct apparitions. Now, even though it is not 100% confirmed if this ability is unique to only airbenders, this seems to be the case. If we had to rank the 2 known users of this ability, at number 2, we would put Mongol. And at number 1, Jinora. We covered 3 out of the 4 elements, but we have yet to analyze the element with the most interesting special bending abilities, Earth. The first and most widely used special ability of Earth is none other than metal bending. Metal bending allows an earthbender to indirectly bend processed metals by manipulating the trace amounts of regular Earth in them, much as they would bend regular Earth. The ability was discovered and later perfected by Toph Beifong. Through the use of seismic sense, Toph was able to perceive, target, and eventually utilize the trace amounts of Earth present in refined metal in order to bend the metal itself. As the technique involves the manipulation of impurities within metal, pure metals such as platinum cannot be bent. After the 100-Year War, Toph opened the Beifong Metal Bending Academy to share her knowledge of the technique with the rest of the world. Her efforts eventually led to the establishment of Republic City's metal bending police force. Later, Toph's youngest daughter, Suyin Beifong, founded Zhaofu, a city made entirely of metal, and the majority of its inhabitants practice metal bending. If we had to rank the strongest metal benders, we would do so as following. At number 5, we would place Korra, the first avatar to ever bend metal, something that not even Aang was able to do. At number 4, we have Suyin Beifong, which, although debatable, we believe her metal bending is a bit weaker than her sister. And at number 3, we have Lin Beifong. Number 2, Kuvira. And at number 1, none other than Toph Beifong. The second bending ability of Earth is something that was once again first developed by Toph, seismic sense. Or was it now? Well, not only Toph learned this skill from the Badger Moles, Toph was not even the first known human to develop this skill. Why? Well, we'll explain that in a bit. Seismic sense is the unique ability to perceive an environment by feeling acute vibrations through the ground, similar to sonar and echolocation. Seismic sense enables the practitioner to detect earthen objects and objects in contact with Earth when out of sight. The technique provides a specific map of the user's surroundings, detailed enough so a blind person, such as Toph Beifong, can navigate effortlessly. It can also be used to detect when someone is lying by feeling their heart and breathing rates through the Earth. Badger Moles, the original Earthbenders, use seismic sense as an innate substitute for eyesight, and this technique was adopted by Toph after she observed the Badger Moles that lived in the mountains surrounding Gaoling. In combination with metal bending, this technique can also be applied to metallic surfaces. The known users of this ability are Toph Beifong, Avatar Aang, Lin Beifong, Suyin Beifong, Aiwei, as well as 2 characters from the light novels, Yun and Jianshu. Jianshu was an earthbending master at the peak of his power, and he was the de facto ruler of most of the Earth Kingdom, though his power was constantly challenged by various opponents. He lived during the time of Avatar Kuruk. Now, when it comes to Yun, well, this case is a special one. You see, Yun lived during the era of Avatar Kyoshi and was dubbed as the false Avatar due to some of his insane abilities that mistook him as a master of all elements. How is that possible? Well, hear me out. Yun was an extremely skilled earthbender, having been trained by various bending masters and possessing a great amount of raw strength as well as a proficiency for finesse. He developed a new technique of writing with stones and pebbles to communicate from long distances. Yun was also capable of other extremely rare earthbending abilities, such as using seismic sense, bending mineral-based pigments, and liquefying stone without using heat to control in ways akin to waterbending. Because of that, he made Earth so liquid that it seemed as if he was bending water, when in reality he was just bending a liquid form of Earth. Yun was also adept at using rock gloves with his earthbending for quick attacks, and he was actually the one who passed this skill down to Kyoshi. He was also skilled in matters of poisoning, subterfuge, and covert assassination, due to special tutelage from his waterbending master Amok. Now, let's see how we rank the known users of seismic sense. At number 7, we place Aiwei, for obvious reasons. At number 6, we have Jianshu, and from here, things start to get tricky, as spots 5 to 3 are quite debatable. I will be placing Suyin Beifong at number 5, Lin Beifong at number 4, and at number 3, Avatar Aang, that showcased to have fully mastered this technique from his training with Toph. He even used this ability to fight Fire Lord Ozai. At number 2, I will place Yun, and at number 1, Toph, that literally used this ability for every second of her entire life. And now, we have a special ability that is probably a plot hole. Why do I say that? Well, hear me out. Lava bending was originally meant to be something only avatars can use by bending both fire and earth at the same time. That's why we saw Avatar Roku and Kyoshi performing lava bending. Kyoshi utilized the technique to split her peninsula from the Earth Kingdom mainland. Roku used lava bending on 3 different occasions. He caused a volcano to erupt at the Fire Temple on Crescent Island. He employed lava bending while working with Sozin to save his home island, and he also used lava bending to destroy the Fire Temple during the winter solstice. However, this ability was later changed in Legend of Korra, and thus became an earth-bending ability rather than an avatar ability. In Legend of Korra, lava bending is a rare technique that involves the manipulation of molten rock. Using lava bending, Kazan was able to form shuriken-like lava projectiles that are capable of burning through several mediums, creating trails of molten rock to attack his opponents, and otherwise manipulate lava with great dexterity. Bolin discovered his aptitude for this skill while he, Mako, Asami, and Tenzin were escaping from the Northern Air Temple. If we had to rank those 2 lava benders, I would place Kazan at number 2 and Bolin at number 1, simply because despite learning this skill only moments earlier, Bolin showed an impressive mastery over this ability. And now, we reach the final special bending ability, energy bending. You see, energy bending is the ability to bend another person's life energy. It predates the 4 main bending arts, the formation of the 4 nations, as well as the creation of the Avatar. Before the Avatar came into existence and the separation of the 4 nations, the lion turtles bent the energy within humans and themselves in order to grant them the ability to bend one of the 4 elements. However, after the lion turtles renounced their roles as protectors of mankind, energy bending was no longer used to grant people bending, and the knowledge of energy bending was almost completely lost. By the time of Avatar Aang, there was only 1 lion turtle left with the ability to energy bend, who later passed down the ability to Aang. Aang used this ability to remove Phoenix King Ozai's firebending, and 28 years later, Aang did the same thing to Yakan's ability to waterbend. Also, after the Equalist's leader Amon severed Korra's bending, apart from her airbending of course, Aang's spirit used energy bending to restore her ability to bend all elements, and passed on the knowledge to her. Later, Korra used it to return Lin Beifong's ability to earthbend, to restore the bending of Amon's non-triad victims, and to stop Kuvira's spirit energy cannon. Although the full capabilities of energy bending are not fully understood, what is known is that bending a person's life energy can impart them with knowledge instantly, remove their bending completely, or restore it. In addition, even though mastering the 4 elements is a necessity for the Avatar, learning energy bending is not considered optional for avatars. But yeah, for sure it would be a great skill for all future avatars to possess. When it comes to the strongest users, other than the lion turtles of course, we only have Aang and Korra. We would place Aang at number 2 and Korra at number 1, simply because Korra showcased an additional ability with energy bending that Aang did not, redirecting Kuvira's spirit energy cannon. Check out this video where I'm building the strongest raid team in solo leveling's history. Go on, check it out!